SONET. While SDH is the international standard, SONET, Synchronous Optical Network, is the North American counterpart defined by ANSI. It follows the same synchronous principles but uses different building blocks and terminology. SONET Architecture. A SONET network is composed of 3 functional layers of equipment. Each layer has its own management responsibility. Section, the physical link between 2 adjacent devices, example a laser on one board to a laser on another. Line, the path between 2 multiplexers. A line can span multiple sections if there are regenerators in between. Path, the end-to-end connection between the source and destination where the data is mapped into the SONET frame. SONET hierarchy and speeds. The base unit of SONET is the STS1, Synchronous Transport Signal Level 1, for electrical signals, which becomes OC1, Optical Carrier Level 1, when converted to light. SONET level SDH equivalent bitrate capacity STS1/OC1, 51.84 Mbps 28T1S or 1DS3 STS3/OC3 STM1 155.52 Mbps 3 STS1S STS12/OC12 STM4 622.08 Mbps 12 STS1S STS48/OC48 STM16 2.488 Gbps 48 STS1S STS192/OC192 STM64 9.953 Gbps 192 STS1S STS1 frame structure. The STS1 frame is a 2D grid sent 8,000 times per second. It is significantly smaller than the SDH STM1 frame. Dimensions, 9 rows times 90 columns equals 810 bytes. Duration. Calculated speed. Overhead layers. SONET overhead is nested to match the architecture. Section, line, path 1. Transport overhead, TOW occupies the first 3 columns of all 9 rows. Section overhead, so rows 1 to 3. Used for framing and monitoring the physical link. Line overhead, low rows 4 to 9.9 used for synchronization, protection switching, K1/K2 bytes, and error monitoring across the line. 2 path overhead, PO the first column of the payload area. It moves with the data from the beginning to the end of the circuit, ensuring end-to-end integrity. Protection mechanisms. Like SDH, SONET is famous for its 50 millisecond switch. UPSR, unidirectional path switched ring similar to SDH SNCP. Traffic is sent in both directions around a ring. The receiver picks the best signal. BLSR, bidirection line switched ring similar to SDH MS Spring. It uses a loopback mechanism if a fiber is cut, redirecting the whole line's traffic onto protection channels in the opposite direction. APS, automatic protection switching. The protocol using K1/K2 bytes in the line overhead to coordinate the switch between nodes. Relationship with SDH. Although they have different names, they were designed to be interworkable at high speeds. The 3-to-1 rule, an SDH STM1, Mbps, is exactly 3 times the size of a SONET STS1, Mbps. Mapping, when a SONET signal crosses the Atlantic to an SDH network, 3 STS1S are multiplexed together to fill a single SDH VC4 container. Terminology map, SONET section SDH regenerator section. SONET line SDH multiplex section. SONET SPE, synchronous payload envelope, SDH VC, virtual container. In 2026, the status of SONET is very similar to that of its international counterpart, SDH, but with a unique North American twist. It is in a phase of managed retirement. While no new SONET networks are being built, the sheer volume of legacy hardware in the United States and Canada means it remains a ghost in the machine for many telecommunications providers. The survival in specialized sectors. While the public internet has moved to 400G/800G Ethernet and OTN, SONET remains the backbone for several mission-critical environments in North America. Public safety and 911 systems. Many regional emergency response systems were built on SONET rings because of the guaranteed 50 milliseconds recovery time. Upgrading these systems is slow due to strict regulatory and safety certifications. The power grid, utilities. North American utility companies, smart grids, still utilize SONET for teleprotection. This requires deterministic, non-packetized timing to ensure circuit breakers trip in sync across hundreds of miles. Legacy federal networks. Various government and defense installations still rely on OC3 and OC12 links for secure, low-latency communications that were never transitioned to IP. Decommissioning and sunsetting Tier 1 carriers, like AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen, have been actively aggressive in their central office modernization programs. Real estate recovery. Old SONET add-drop multiplexers, ADMs, take up massive amounts of floor space. By decommissioning them, carriers can close entire buildings or rent out the space. Power and cooling. A modern 1RU, 1 rack unit, Packet-Optical switch can handle more traffic than 10 7-foot-tall SONET racks while using 90% less power. Copper retirement. Since SONET was often used to aggregate T1 lines coming off copper wires, As carriers kill the copper, the need for the SONET equipment at the other end disappears. The wrap and replace strategy to bridge the gap between old hardware and new fiber. The industry uses two primary methods in 2026, A circuit emulation, CES. As we discussed earlier, carriers use circuit emulation to wrap an OC3 or OC12 signal inside an IP/MPLS packet. This allows them to keep the customer's old SONET equipment running while the actual transport happens over a modern 5G/fiber core. B. Packet-Optical evolution. Most SONET sales today are actually sales of Packet-Optical transport platforms, POTP. These devices have universal slots that can speak both languages. They can plug into an old OC48 line. They can simultaneously plug into a new 100G Ethernet line. They bridge the two worlds, allowing the operator to slowly migrate traffic from the SONET side to the Ethernet side. Challenges: the talent gap and spare parts. The biggest threat to SONET today isn't just technology, it's human capital. The brain drain: the engineers who know how to troubleshoot a SONET timing slip or an APS, automatic protection switching, failure are retiring. The secondary market: many companies now rely on gray market or refurbished parts because vendors have stopped manufacturing new SONET line cards. Summary table: SONET in 2026 aspect status: new hardware sales discontinued by most major vendors. Maintenance transitioning to third-party support or best effort. Traffic profile rapidly shifting to OTN and IP over fiber. End date: expected total phase out of major carrier cores by 2030.